Doctors of Abbey Research. I'm Dr. Erin.
I am Dr. Kristen.
You are very welcome to our second piece of coverage on Iceland for our Colonizers World Tour series. We are in Book 2, excitingly. Book 1 was last year. We're on Chapter 1, which is Global Women's Stories. And you've also, if you've followed us, you also know we're dealing only in countries with I this month. So we've done Ireland, we've done India, now we're doing Iceland. And the way we're talking about global women's stories this month as Women's History Month, International Women's Day, all those lovely things, is in the piece of art that we've selected for each country, we're focusing on women's stories. So today's film is the 2019 film. It's listed as a comedy. Some parts are funny. It is not a comedy. Woman at War, which is available on Hulu, and now I think Disney Plus just told me. So I was like, everybody, Disney owns everything. I watched it on Hulu. I think you did too. And it is the story of one woman named Hala, who we meet very early on as she is trying to take down an electric grid that goes into a factory. It is the story, kind of the dual story of her desire to disrupt economically the process of like global industry in Iceland because of its impact on the environment. So it is a movie about climate change and globalization and what it means to protest climate change. But it's also the story of Hala, who has always wanted to be a mother, I think we're led to believe, and has been on the list to adopt a child for a very long time. And she gets notified during the film that there is a girl, deeply ironically, given when we're filming this, the week that we're filming this, Russia is likely invading Ukraine, probably as we speak. The little girl is from the Donetsk region of Ukraine, which we're talking about so much these days because it's one of the areas controlled by pro-Russian separatists that Vladimir Putin has just declared independent so that he can have a peacekeeping force go protect the people. So anyway, the wee girl Nika is from the Ukraine. And so we get these juxtaposed stories. Done very creatively, I think, in terms of two different sets of musicians or performers who appear at different times to kind of tell us maybe where Hala's mindset is.
Yeah, I feel like it's like a way that we understand her priority at the moment.
At the moment, yeah. So there's a brass band that plays maybe ethnic Icelandic music.
The subtitles labeled it aggressive folk music.
Yeah.
So, sure, it's a tuba, a piano, and an accordion.
And then also...
And drums.
Ethnic Ukrainian singers, 3 women who are singing. So it was a bit disconcerting. The movie's a bit art house. Not a bit art house. It is straight up art house. It is art house, yeah. It is art house, capital A, capital H. But once you kind of understood what was happening, you got into there's Ukrainian singers now. We might be learning something about Nika. We find out kind of halfway through the movie that she has an identical twin sister named Asa, who is a yoga teacher and wants to go meditate in an ashram in India.
For 2 years, cut off from the entire world.
So she's a very dedicated yogi. Yeah. So it was I think Dr. Kristen liked it maybe a little bit more than I did, but I didn't dislike it. It just was a little bit too long, and the parts where she was in the mountains running around disrupting the economy and hiding from the drones and the helicopter was just too long for me. And I was a little bit too... I don't mind being somewhat confused. I was a little bit too confused for too long of the movie, in my opinion. But I did enjoy watching it, and I did learn from it. So it was a fascinating cultural experiment. Dr. Kristen, what did you like the most about this film?
I mean, I really loved the musician thing. I thought that was so creative.
It was very creative. Yeah, it was.
I really loved that, and I loved. It was obvious it's made by Icelandic people in Iceland, so I saw what the milk looked like and what the cars looked like. And if you've ever watched this channel, you know that that's one of the things I love the most about watching these movies is I just get to feel.
It was immersive. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I get to feel what this city, because I mean, she obviously lives in Reykjavik, but I think also like a little outside of it. Like I don't get the impression that she was like in the bustling heart of Reykjavik. So this is where my husband and I have these conversations a lot, where it's what is the difference between progressing the movement of climate change and eco-terrorism. And a lot of it's because a while ago we watched a documentary about Greenpeace and the Sea Shepherd movement, the Sea Shepherd group of people. And they were trying to halt whaling in the Faroe Islands, and the Faroese people were like, this is really cultural and we're really respectful with it, and who the hell are you? And there was so much of this movie where I just wanted to like scream at her, you have to play the game to win the game, child.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like what you are doing is not demonstrating to anyone that that I don't see how what you are doing is going to bring people to your side. I don't see how what you are doing is going to convince anyone. And in fact, we see that play out.
Yeah.
Because eventually she releases her manifesto, and it is a bit of a joke to some college kids that take a selfie with it. Like, the government spins it immediately, and even without the government spin, to be completely frank, I would have been one of the people that was like, this does nothing except jeopardize international trade, which we need because we can't fully support ourselves. Yeah.
It was interesting that, she has this accomplice, Hala, in her non-eco-terrorism free time, is a choir instructor. And there's a guy who works for the government in her choir who's like, knows who she is and what she's doing and is kind of helping her sometimes with information. But
when they put their phones in the freezer.
When they put their phones in the freezer and they're making copies. That was delightful. But after the manifesto is released, he kind of comes to her and he's like, I told you to talk to me. Like, I can't help you with this. I was going to help you craft the language of the manifesto. He's like, they're going to... and she was like... And it was a really interesting distinction that he made. And he was like, they don't want to bury it. They want to control it.
Yeah.
And what you did was give them something they can control. And I can't help you anymore. Which was really interesting.
And she, in this very naive that honestly we see from a lot of, I think, environmental activists, like, well, then you're talking about the right things.
Yeah.
No. We're not in the all PR is good PR bucket here.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of ways to talk about the environment, and there's a lot of ways to talk about terrorism. And very, very easily, very quickly, we see in a scene in a bathhouse and with her sister that, like, she has no one on her side. No one thinks this is a good idea. And I'll be really honest, as a manufacturing person, when I saw them shut down the plant, I was like, that puts people's lives in jeopardy. Like, she shut down power to a smelting plant.
Yeah.
I was like, what? Someone could have gotten smelted.
That was dangerous.
What are you doing?
It was dangerous. Yeah.
And it was a very, honestly, in the way we do think about extremism, where their cause is more important than any of the collateral damage, that is kind of how Hala behaved. Her cause is more important than any of the potential collateral damage. And the ending is interesting. We're not going to ruin it for you, because I do think you should watch this.
Yeah.
I don't think I wasted 2 hours, an hour and 45 minutes of my life. I agree with Dr. Aaron that I did not need to see her tromp around the mountains as much as we did.
No.
I appreciated the Icelandic landscape.
It was beautiful. I definitely see, like, the parts of it that look like Game of Thrones. Like, that was cool.
Loved it. Yeah. Could have knocked a good 20 minutes off of this and made it tighter and better. Mm-hmm. And there were some, like, small moments. At one point, we are with the ministry and the president of Iceland, and it's when he's taking the Chinese people to the Ring of Power, the Chinese diplomats, because that's who they're negotiating.
Yes, like it's where the all thingy used to meet.
It's where the all thingy used to meet, and then they get the manifesto, and this group of ministers walk away, and they form a circle, and it kind of goes up, and I was like, oh, this is the new Ring of Power, and this is how things still work. I also I loved her house. I would like to live in
Oh
her
my God, I
house.
want to live in her house. I just kept thinking that every time they showed it. It was just glorious. There were books and cozy couches and sunlight and beautiful plants. Oh my God. Yes.
I was super into it. Yeah, and some other things, like I knew they were going to pull the Anders Breivik comparison the minute that she did that. So really, this is one of the really hard things. She's not wrong. She's not wrong. The planet is dying. Every scientist worth their salt is telling us that, and any of us who watch the Weather Channel can see that things are not okay. I don't understand on any level how destroying the power grid is going to reverse that. And so I just spent the whole time being like, oh, you sweet summer child.
Yeah, and
what are you doing?
You know, we've talked about this a lot in some of our other coverage in terms of, you know, the end justifying the means. And, you know, I agree with her about climate change 100%. We have to do some radical things or else it's too late. I mean, I'm more of a cynic and I think it's probably too late already. But especially because this movie was very accurate in terms of how we've seen governments respond in terms of balancing the global market and the economic needs and maintaining capitalism versus the impact on the environment. But as you said, those are people's jobs, their livelihoods. Like, what are we going to do? We're going to stop people from working now, and they talk about the economic impact, and that's what a lot of people fear, is that it's going to, you know, raise the prices of things. People are going to be out of work. So there's the immediate cost versus the long-term cost, and we did get that discussion a little bit in the film. And I think what I appreciated most about the way it handled all of this stuff was it let us have the discussion in our head mostly. It wasn't overly...
it didn't hold our hands.
It didn't hold our hands through it. It just said, like, these are humans having a discussion. And on an intellectual level, we can have that discussion. And it doesn't need to be, like, hitting us over the head, either with Hala's perspective or anybody else's.
Yeah, the movie is neutral on her, I think. I don't think it promotes or demotes her point of view. I mean, symbolism-wise, it's super heavy-handed, but that's what art house cinema is. Art house cinema is heavy-handed cinema. That's kind of what it is.
Especially the final scene. I was like, got it. Thanks
so much. But then, once I got it, I was like, how'd they film this? What did they do? That was fascinating. There's a huge water theme throughout this movie, and water's always an interesting thing for filmmakers to play with, because obviously water's cleansing, but it's also suffocating if there's too much of it. And what does that look like? Overall, really, I feel like I understand Icelandic culture better after watching this film. And for our purposes, that is why we watch these. And so I give it, for our purposes, 2 thumbs up.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with that. I don't think I'm ever going to need to see this film again.
I'm not going to go out of my way, but if I'm, like, at someone's house and it's on, I wouldn't walk out of the room.
But, you know, not sorry that I watched it at all, and there were parts of it I really enjoyed. But parts of it I didn't. Mostly involving dead sheep carcasses.
And could have done without that.
That was a bit much. But yeah, the water theme was interesting as well, because water is such a huge part of Icelandic culture. Certainly the glaciers, but also, like, they, you know, it's one of the things that we learned. Their entire country is geothermal, but also produces its own natural water. And, like, renewable. Like, they don't run out of water. They might be because of climate change. But, like, almost any stream is completely drinkable water. So I think that was a part of it as well, was this play, in terms of that it is, I think, an important part of Icelandic culture, and certainly the way they relate to their climate and their land. And she was very emotionally connected to the land, and they made that clear. So that was an interesting part of it. Yeah, it was a quirky little film.
It's exactly what I expect of a Nordic/European art house film.
Yeah, but we recommend it. Watch it. Iceland's beautiful. It's an interesting film. If you watch it and you want to discuss it in the comments with us, please let us know.
We'd love to do that. Mm-hmm. So next week we are at our final I country that we have covered them all, and we will end with Iraq. Here's what we have promised you. As two Americans, we have done our damnedest to find data that has nothing to do with the invasion. And we're going to be talking about art that is not produced by Americans. I'll be on the Abby Research Reads channel talking about a book not written by an American about Iraq. So we're going to do our best to bring that perspective. And we hope you join us for next week.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.